I want to start off with this story coming out of Israel. I actually saw this on Twitter. It was Max Blumenthal who shared this article. And the first thing I just thought to myself was, where is Hakeem Jeffries? Where is Richie Torres? Where is RFK Jr.? Where is Rabbi Shmuley? Like, where are all these people that continue to defend the Israeli government when it comes to a story like this? Because this type of abuse and retaliation, like this is not okay to treat people this way. So what happened? Let's get into it. By the way, if you try to find this on YouTube, because I looked on YouTube to see if there was a video of the story. I have yet to find a video of it yet. But here we are. Israeli police arrest and brand Palestinian with Star of David. Let's get into this. You can see the pictures here. This is just like living in a state of terror. Like, would you want to live like this, guys? Could you imagine if you walked outside your apartment or your home and this is what you see every day when you're just trying to go to school, go to work, go to the gas station? It says a Palestinian man who was detained by Israeli forces in occupied East Jerusalem said he has been physically abused after officers brutally beat him and branded the Star of David on his cheek, according to Israeli media reports. The man's lawyer presented the charges to a Jerusalem district court on Thursday, a day after he was taken from his residence in the Shafat refugee camp. At least 16 officers were involved in the arrest of the Palestinian man. However, none had their body cameras on, according to Ynet News website. So here we go with another situation where the body cameras are off. What does that remind you of? Now, this happened in Israel, but we see this same issue happen in the United States. Now, why do I want to make that connection? Because who trains the police officers in the United States? Where do they get their training from? They get their training from Israeli forces. So you see the connection. This is why I try to tell you that foreign policy is domestic policy. What you see happening right now, that's happening in Israel in reference to the police officers and the brutality, that's the same thing that happens here in the United States. Let's continue. The officers blindfolded the man and proceeded to beat him with their fists in all parts of his body. The man's cheek was then branded with the Jewish Star of David symbol, it added. Wadim Shub, the Palestinian man's lawyer, was quoted as saying in a statement that the incident was a grave case of intentional violence and humiliation of a detainee by police, and demanded an immediate police investigation. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen like branding before. Some fraternities used to do this. I don't know if they still do this till this day, but that's considered hazing. But some fraternities and some of the rugby players, they used to do like a branding exercise where they will literally take like a symbol that's shaped into a piece of metal, basically take that metal and dip it into hot fire and press it on your skin. And thus the symbol is now branded into your skin. It's painful. And I don't know how you remove it. So if anyone asks me like, how do you remove it? I don't know how you remove it. Let's go on. As a law-abiding country, we must not put up with the phenomenon of police brutality. You see that right there? Police brutality. In this case, the nature of the injuries raises a strong suspicion that they were racially motivated. The presiding judge, Amir Shakid, reportedly expressed his horror over the incident. The Times of Israel reported and directed the case to the police internal investigation department. Man. It's crazy over there. The police department alleged that the man resisted arrest, violently attacking and kicking police who responded with reasonable force to subdue him. The man, whoops, go down. Sorry about that. The man resisted arrest. Isn't that the same thing that police officers in the US say? Whenever they're accused of police brutality, they say that the suspect was resisting arrest. Anything can be considered resisting arrest, by the way. The suspect did not comply. Stop resisting. This is what you'll see on these videos that people get with their phones when the police officers turn their cameras off. Stop resisting, and you'll see in the video that they're actually not resisting. There's been times when the suspect has been on the ground with their hands behind their back, and the police officers are still saying, stop resisting. Let me continue. The Palestinian man was detained for allegedly committing drug trafficking offenses. Al Jazeera reached out to the Palestinian Prisoners Club for comment, but did not receive a response at the time of publication. Israel is currently holding more than 5,000 Palestinian political prisoners, according to figures published by the rights group Adamir. At least 1,200 of them are held without charge or trial in a widely criticized practice known as administrative detention. That sounds familiar too. Administrative detention. They're just holding political prisoners there, just holding them there without charge or trial. Israeli forces often conduct near daily pre-dawn raids into the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem in an attempt to crack down on a growing armed resistance. Armed soldiers often prompt confrontations with Palestinian residents, arresting and even killing many of them. See this right here? By the way, confrontations could be anything. Confrontation doesn't necessarily mean that it was a physical confrontation. Sometimes a confrontation could just be one of the Israeli soldiers saying, "Why are you here? What are you doing?" That's also considered to be a confrontation. And I want to say that because I don't want people to assume that the Palestinians are just automatically becoming physical with the Israeli soldiers. We don't know that. But confrontation can mean a verbal confrontation or a physical confrontation. This article doesn't specify. So just keep that in mind. More than 200 Palestinians have been killed this year in the occupied Palestinian territories, and the United Nations has warned that 2023 is on track to be the deadliest year for Palestinians since it started recording fatalities. That's since it started recording. So we don't know before then. The deadliest year for the Palestinian people. These are the kind of situations where people like Hakeem Jeffries and Richie Torres, they don't want to hear about these situations. And when these situations happen, you never hear them comment on it. When Palestinians are beaten, when they're attacked, when they're killed, silence from people like Hakeem and people like Richie Torres, who says that they stand with the Israeli state government. The only time they tend to speak out is when they're saying what I just said to you, they're standing with the Israeli state government, or when they feel that the Israeli state government has been wronged. Now, why does this happen? Why are people like Hakeem Jeffries and Richie Torres willing to support a government that is allowing this type of behavior to happen? Because it's all about money. Because politicians like Hakeem and Richie take money from lobbyists. Whether it's organizations like J Street or You Have It, if you look at Open Secrets, you'll see Hakeem Jeffries, Richie Torres, they are funded by those groups. So this is why we continue to say you have to get corporate money. You have to get the money out of electoral politics, because the money does sway the politicians in reference to how they vote and who they support, even if they know they're in the wrong. And what is happening to the Palestinians is wrong. There have been several human rights organizations that have also said so. This is not an opinion that I have. But most of the politicians will not speak out about it. Let's go on. Palestinians and human rights groups have long accused Israeli forces of killing Palestinians under questionable circumstances. They say Israel does a poor job of prosecuting and punishing its forces in cases of wrongdoing. Investigations often end with no charges or lenient sentences, and in many cases, witnesses are not even summoned for questioning. Last month, an Israeli court acquitted a border police officer who was charged with reckless manslaughter in the deadly shooting of Iyad, I hope I'm saying it right, Iyad al-Halak, an autistic Palestinian man. And I want to highlight this for just a second. Autistic Palestinian man. Again, where have we seen this happen? We've seen it happen here in the United States, where we have had police forces go in and kill American citizens that are autistic or suffering from schizophrenia or have some type of mental health issue that police are actually not trained to deal with. And instead of having the right people come in, like a mental health expert, to deal with that situation, the police come in, they freak out, they don't know how to handle it, and oftentimes there's a deadly result. There's connections to what's happening abroad and what's happening here in the United States. And it goes on to say the court ruled that the officer was acting in self-defense when he shot the 32-year-old in occupied East Jerusalem's Old City 3 years ago. What are we going to do about this? This Thursday, there's a gentleman coming on. You may have seen him on Kim Iverson's show recently, Miko. He's going to come on to talk about this issue because I need to have someone on that can explain it in a way more detailed than I can. And he's very much against the whole Zionism concept. So he's going to come on and he's going to talk about this more. I'm going to bring up this example and other examples as well. But what I want to say is this cannot be ignored. These incidents, whether it's this gentleman who was beaten and branded, whether it is the Palestinian journalist who was shot and lost her life, whether it's the kids, the videos of the kids that I've seen beaten in the street, it doesn't matter who the person is. It needs to stop and it needs to be discussed. And more people need to hear about this side of it. Because I feel like a lot of the people, not just the politicians, but a lot of the people that are quick to say that they support the Israeli state government and just completely just dismiss or ignore what's happening to the Palestinian people. Two things are happening here. Either those people know what's happening and they're choosing to ignore it, which is absolutely horrible. Those people are usually probably paid off, by the way, or they don't know. And a lot of people do not know. So we have to continue to get this message out to as many people as possible. It's such a mess. It's such a mess. How many more incidents? And I think it's good to listen to people who have been there, right? Like Kim Iverson was there. Max Blumenthal was there. Like when you talk to those journalists that have actually been there on the Gaza Strip, like they know what's happening to those people. And when we talk about mainstream media, they know what's happening to the Palestinian people too, but they're not telling you the whole story. And that's a big part of the problem. This is why we can't have these politicians connected monetarily to the lobbyists. All that needs to go. Lobbyists need to go. The corporate money, corporate greed needs to go. All that needs to go far away from politics. Super PACs need to go. And I'll give you a recent example, something that I was just watching the other day. So I saw Painkiller on Netflix, and then I recently just finished Dope Sick on Hulu about the opioid crisis. And one of the things that was very apparent to me was the reason why this epidemic went on for as long as it did, 2 decades, was because even when there was enough evidence to really take the Sackler family and throw them under the jail cell, you had people like Rudy Giuliani who had it pretty much in good with the DOJ and congressmen to come in and take the side of big pharma and protect the Sackler family. You had politicians in Congress that decided to look the other way, like the congressman, the senator from Connecticut, I forget his name, Senator Dodd, who decided to look the other way because he was getting money from big pharma. That's why you have to get rid of corporate money in electoral politics, because that's what they will do. Think of all the people who could have been saved. 2 decades. And the Sackler family still isn't behind bars. I'm going to try to see if I can actually talk to one of the U.S. attorneys that was involved in that case. So I got his contact information yesterday. I'm going to see if I can interview him, because I have to ask him, like, 2 decades and all the evidence was there. And when you watch it, and sorry to go off topic, but when you watch it, it's so frustrating because they had everything, crossed all the dots. And it made me so angry just to see how these corporations and these billionaires, and the Sackler family are billionaires, by the way, how these billionaires were able to get away with murdering over 500,000 people in this country. So when you look at people like Hakeem Jeffries and you look at people like Richie Torres and the connection that they have to the Israeli lobby, what do you think they would do? You think they're going to speak out against what's happening to people in Palestine? Not at all. They're willing to look the other way. Just like Senator Dodd from Connecticut was willing to look the other way when all those people were dying. Never forget that. I'm going to go to some of the comments here in the chat. Lana says, can't wait to hear RFK Jr.'s take on this story. So I've already seen on Twitter or X, what are we calling it today? Whatever. I already saw several people tag him in reference to that story. I haven't seen him say anything yet. Saul says Mandela was labeled a terrorist until 2005. It takes speaking out and pressure. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. Thank you, Sabby. Love to Palestine. You are welcome, Rob. You are welcome. Yeah, these are some of the things we got to talk about these things.